got a set of queries as a part of the Agile Business Leaders course. And he has some queries on how he wants to transition to his new role in the company, and how he plans to upskill himself with the relevant skills that are required for that job, and keeping in view of people's need for a coach, but at the same time not visible in front of the network. We have kept the discussion quite discreet, and as you can see, Prakash's video is not turned on. Prakash, please go ahead with where you are currently, what's your years of experience, what have you been doing, and what is your aspirations as you go ahead.
Sure, sir. So first of all, thanks for this mentoring session. It is going to be really helpful for me. I would try to understand the things from you and learn as much as possible in this journey of my career. So let me first begin where I come from and how I came to this position that I want to aspire. I'm aspiring as an enterprise architect. My total experience is about 15 to 16 years, and I started in the year 2007 roughly. That's where I started in IT industry directly, and in the first year itself, I was after doing some support related work, I was dropped into business analysis. It was called also solution design at that time. Which I did for a couple of years, which was completely new to me, but it kept my interest at that level. Okay, and then I moved into some other areas like process designing, which I did for a couple of years. Then I went into ITIL related process design. I worked for a few clients on that. I completed my ITIL expert certification also over the course of about 2 to 3 years, as and when I got those relevant skills required. So that I completed, and then it became my major skill to do process design or business analysis as part of my work. So mostly that's what I am doing. It has been a series of various projects I worked on. Initially it was 2 or 3 service companies that I worked on, worked in, and then I have moved into a product company currently, which is into the finance reporting and credit reporting, etc. Currently, the role is on business analysis again, but it is combined because of my experience. It is combined with now Scrum Master role, as I said, business analysis, process design, and also project management to some extent. So project management and Scrum role is a little less, about 30 to 40%, but mostly still the work happening is on the business analysis. I thought at this juncture of my career, I should be able to transition into business architecture and enterprise architecture, because that's what interested me a lot. So that's where I look forward to have these skills. So currently I'm in a project which is with respect to the cloud migration of the applications and data from one cloud to another cloud. At the same time, we are transforming also in the application space as well as the data, etc. So I thought of using this project, which is a multi-phase, multi-year project, as a stepping stone into exploring and utilizing the enterprise architecture tools and skills, so that I can learn, I can contribute to my organization, and I can grow. That's the background of my discussion here, sir.
Okay, okay. Fine, Prakash. And how many years of experience do you come across currently? Like how much of experience you have currently?
Yeah, it is about 16 years.
16 years.
16 years. Yes.
Okay, okay. And currently you are in the product management space, right?
Yes, yes. It's also called as a technical product manager.
Okay, okay. Fair enough. So that's good, Prakash. So I think with that in mind, obviously this course is packaged in such a way that you can transition into a solution architect or a business architect or an enterprise architect, and also help you with all the relevant skills that will position you as a senior technology leader as you progress in your career. So it's got a package list of a lot of disciplines from various bodies of knowledge, and as well as several companies which are requested for these kind of skills to train and upskill their technology leaders, and obviously individuals who came forward and said okay, they lack these kind of skills, including stuff like mentoring, coaching people one-on-one like this. Then it has got a couple of video sessions from where you can actually delve into all the topics that are shared as a part of this course. And also, how do you kind of position yourself as a thought leader and get visibility on platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter, for instance, or how do you write white papers and see yourself that people recognizing you for your skills and things like that. So it's got a list of all of these kind of skills that we will be having as a part of this thing. So I think first of all, you can go through the list of queries that you have come up with, which is, I think, mostly with regard to enterprise architecture and how do you use a framework to solve the problem of cloud solutioning per se, and things like that. So I think I will go with the list of queries that you already come up with, and we'll go one after the other from there on. So yes, Prakash, what's your first query that you have?
Yeah, so first query is from the perspective of an enterprise architect, what tools or technologies would you recommend for managing the process of cloud migration itself?
Okay, okay. I think if I have to look at your query, it is this, because you've shared me before what it is. So it is, what tools and technologies would you recommend for the process of cloud migration? So this is actually a very high-ended, open-ended question, because as you know, cloud is just another name for the IT stacks that existed previously. Obviously, it's making it better. It is on demand. It is saving energies, and it's got obviously its own benefits. But when you say what tools and technologies, obviously it is going to be such that because no one tool would fix everything and anything. There's no silver bullet to fixing the tools and technologies, but based on what you plan to do. So let us say you want to do data center migration or back office transitioning, or you want to do some knowledge management thing, or finance or accounting, payroll processing, inventory management, logistics. So based on the gamut of things that you would plan to do, based on that, obviously you would have the tools and technologies that would be relevant. And based on whether, so one question to you, Prakash, is are you using, what stack are you using currently in your company? Because every company has a lenience towards a particular stack. It could be either AWS, Azure, or Google GCP, or something else. So
yeah, so this is going to be a migration from AWS to Google Cloud.
Okay, and the reason why you're going from AWS, is it because it's cheaper, or you're more aligned with the Google stack? And so what is the reason why you're going that way?
So yeah, so I was not involved in the decision-making process, but there seems to be an organizational mandate. I mean, the business unit I'm working in is a small one, but it has been an organizational decision completely to migrate to Google Cloud. So yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough. So there could be reasons on why Google Cloud is seen as better than Amazon Cloud. So probably you're using some Google apps already, the Google suite of products, which could be using finance, accounting details. And since you are already getting larger discounts on that, it might make sense for you to move the entire stack on Google. So there could be various such reasons. So every vendor has their own migration tools for the cloud. So if you're using AWS to Google GCP, you'll have to look at those kind of details, whatever is the chosen stack that you do. And when you're looking at migration, look at what are the KPIs that you want to measure. Is it increased bandwidth, latency, performance of the application, or application migration, ease of use? Then is it the overall user experience in terms of how easy is it to administrate, manage, and leverage the cloud to do things? And then how do you lift shift the entire monolithic application? So currently, is your stack completely in a microservices mode, or is it some part of it's monolithic, some part is microservices? Like, you do you have a lot of legacy there, or how?
Lot of legacy there. Yes.
Okay. Then obviously, it's not going to be a lift and shift easy stuff, because
Correct.
be in the microservices sort of stuff. But are you saying you have legacy with AWS, or
Legacy with AWS.
legacy with AWS?
With
Okay.
AWS,
So you've
yes.
already done one step of the journey, which
Exactly, yes. One step is done. It has grown kind of, you can say it has proliferated due to various use cases being pumped in, and also, I mean, legacy is also there. I mean, the AWS is just at the layer of data storage. Okay, and on top of that, they have built again applications.
Okay. So you're using AWS's RDBMS to store stuff, and then you need to move it into the Google stuff. So is the database going to be the same, or is it going to be different?
When you say database,
Obviously, you'll go with MySQL or Oracle or one of them, right?
Okay, so we have both MySQL as well as but when we go into Google Cloud, we are looking for, instead of Redshift, we are looking for having BigQuery there. So
BigQuery, okay.
Yeah, BigQuery. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of analytics based scenarios that you're going to be running.
Correct. That's correct. Yes, analytics based scenario. Data analytics based. Yeah.
Okay. So you'll have to look at the technology support both from AWS and the Google side, and end of life considerations. Then obviously, what is the dependent hardware, software, and the underlying stack, the details on both sides, on the AWS side of things, on the Google side of things. And if you said some of it is legacy, some of it is microservices, so how much of containerization? And if it is a SaaS-based application, then obviously the 12 factors that is there for any SaaS-based application to be put into the cloud. So has all those things been checked? So I'll share you the 12-factor checklist that you can actually look at when you are doing the cloud. So it says it should be idempotent, it should have atomicity, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's a good checklist for any cloud application to be there on a SaaS-based platform. So I'll share you that. Then obviously, how much of it is going to be, how much of blob data are you trying to move? Whether it is going to be virtualized instances that will move, or they're already in some Dockerized images or some container-based details. So that detail also has to be there. Then what are the considerations for a tool to be done? So typically you'll never have one tool which will do everything. So one tool could be doing the data porting, then another tool could be doing the data archiving, another one could be doing the replication and things like that. So you'll never find one single tool to do that. From AWS to GCP, you'll have to use a list of tools to do that. So that's the reason I told you that this is a high-level open-ended question. But then the considerations that you will need to take for the tool vendor would be things like, what is the support that you get across various tiers, the app tier, UI, UX, the browser, then the web server, the app server, and the backend databases and the business logic. How much of support do you get from the stacks? Check with the compatibility of the stack. So at times it could be database issues, like CLOB data is supported on one database, it supports 1 GB of CLOB, another one could be supporting 2 GB of CLOB and blob state data. And then you have to check compatibility across various layers and what are the features of the tool that you want to harness. So it will never be a straightforward answer. You'll have to check what are all the implications of what you need to use from this tool and do that. Then obviously, what is the data in, data out that you would need from the tool? What is the bandwidth in case of the ingress egress data that is there if you're doing a data porting exercise or a data migration exercise? What is the data replication scenarios, and are you planning to use more than one database? Obviously, you, from what you said, you're going to use Google Bigtable, and you might also be using some SQL based things, the traditional RDBMS. So it could be a combination of both of them, or you could be using multiple databases. And then how much of your data automation, workload automation are you planning, and how much does the tool support it? And obviously, these days, security is a key factor in most of the migration projects. So it's a day one requirement. It is not coming at the day end. So whether security is going to be there end to end across all the. So these are some of the things that you would need to take care as a part of the attributes of the tool, is what I would tell you. Apart from that, you'll have to look at what exactly are you trying to do in your architecture piecemeal. On the AWS side of things, what is it currently on? What is that you want to do on the GCP side of stuff? So take an Excel and say, okay, this is a web tier, your app tier database, and have a one-on-one matching with, okay, the web tier gets mapped onto this particular stack on the Google side of things. On the AWS side, it is that. And once you do that, I think you'll be able to have a full-fledged, compatibility check, and then you're good to go for the migration. But typically, it will never be one tool. Obviously, there are providers who, as I told you, there are tools for cloud backups. There are tools who would probably help you with web services compatibility on both sides of things. There could be tools which would help you to make database agnostic kind of features. But then again, it will make your whole stack very expensive if you're to use a lot of tools. Instead, it would be easier to map these on one-on-one and then try to use tools as sparingly as possible, because one tool may not do the entire job required, and there's no silver bullet to say that this tool would fix everything for you.
Right, sir. Right.
So I think this is about the tool level of details. And what's your another question that you had?
Yeah, so I have one more question that is related to, again, in project in itself. So as an enterprise architect, if I'm coming more from the business architecture perspective.
Okay, I think there's just Prakash, there are data replications. I think this is what we talked about. Yeah, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm now in this question, I'm coming from more from the business side of things. Okay, so what are the key aspects of a cloud migration project that an enterprise architect should focus on? So I'll briefly explain this question, why I'm asking this, because it can very easily seem very technical project, but there are business aspects which we need to take into account. So what I mean, I have been a business analyst, okay, and I'm looking for, okay, what services we are offering to the users, okay, and those need to continue either in the same service levels or a better service level. Okay, we are looking for that, but from an enterprise architect perspective, okay, so what are the things that I should look into specifically cloud migration? Because for technical architecture, there are separate people. Other than that, are there any aspects that I should concentrate on?
Okay. I think that's a good thing. So your question did not clarify that, consider the technical, because there are technology aspects which are taken care of by the technology architects. Yes, I think that is correct. So when you are at an enterprise architect level, there are a lot of features at the business level that you need to look into, and at the stakeholder level in terms of putting yourself in the shoes of business stakeholders and trying to see what is matching. So obviously you'll take into account regulatory factors that will impact the cloud in your area of business. So are there any regulations around that typically that would be there? Then what are the service level agreements that are there from various stakeholders with regard to these exercises? And what would be the compliance requirements? So the governance, risk, and compliance. So what are the risk activities? What are the compliance activities that are there? And then, what is, first of all, the business case for the cloud? What is the reason why you're putting stuff in the cloud? Is it on demand, pay-per use, or is it, ease of migration, portability, and details like that? So is it, what would be the real use case for going with the cloud? So is it, increased dollar savings, or ease of use, or reduction of operational items that you actually have, operational efficiency, the organization efficiency? Obviously, cloud brings its benefits. So your stand as a senior product manager would be to articulate the business use case for the cloud. So why do you need cloud in the first place, and why are we pushing for moving our entire stack in the cloud? And so it has to be very strong. That is the first case, the why you're trying to do that. Then your cloud service models, like how much of private, public, hybrid clouds are you going to use in this exercise? And then the organization culture has to be seen as to whether that's supportive of the cloud, in terms of whether you have DevOps maturity, you have multi-skill maturity in terms of the various stacks that are there. Then you should be able to choose the right architecture. As you said, you have people to do that on the technology side of things for that. And then your business case for going with the right service provider as well. So going from AWS to Google GCP. Then do you have considerations of audit? So do you have private data? Do you have sensitive data that you're putting in the cloud? So is there customer depersonalization that is being done for those items? So do you have regulations around them? What are the data considerations? Data at rest, data in motion. So are you security enabled for all of those scenarios? So what would be the security aspects of those things, and what would be the centralized logging strategy, for instance, is something that you will need to look at. Okay, how much of logs will you enable the operational guys to look at it? How much of it will be enabled? And what kind of data are you storing from a business perspective in the logs? So are you storing any customer sensitive data in the logs? Then you look at the SLA management in terms of what are the various service levels that you're promising to various customers and stakeholders, and are all of them being met? And what are the kind of monitoring strategies to measure those kind of details, like what you promise is what you deliver? Then what is your disaster recovery planning in case there is an uptime, downtime in terms of the services? How do you plan to do that? Then your DevOps culture itself, how are you supporting strong teams which are distributed across to work in a DevOps way, because that requires an organization cultural shift. So as an enterprise architect, you will be able to position and help your company to transform to that level of maturity using CI/CD best practices. And then obviously assessing your organization maturity in terms of the cloud migration. Where are you today versus where you want to go tomorrow? And talk with the senior stakeholders, like members of your management and your customers, and figure out, okay, what is the expectation from the cloud migration activity? Is it enhanced performance? Is it ease of use, operational use? Is it pay like CapEx to OpEx kind of a scenario in terms of the cloud savings? Or overall better architecture, easy to manage architecture? So which one is the strong factor? So you will have to consider all of these things, including the business case, the business drivers for that, and then what is the relevant capability across various business units that will require this level of transformation. So what are the value streams and the relevant capabilities? So as from an enterprise architect perspective, you'll have to take into account those aspects and then plan for skill upgrade in those areas in terms of the capability details and so on. So I think this is typically what would be there as a part of your role as an enterprise architect. So you'll have to find out which are the key value streams, for instance, and in that value streams, what are the key capabilities that are missing around those value streams, and how do you map those capabilities to application, data, people, process, and technology, and then figure out, okay, saying that these are the roadmaps that will push people to accept and transition for this kind of a cloud migration project. So you'll have to make the business case and present it in such a way. Does it make sense?
Yeah. The last bit, especially, I will focus on a lot regarding the capability versus the people, process, etc., and the technology and applications. That mapping is something that is of utmost interest to me.
I think that's covered in one of the modules, actually. In one of the in Ping Me, I'll tell you how to do the value stream mapping for the various business use cases that come across in the architecture, and then how do you map them at the high level capability level purely from a business perspective, and then how do you translate it to business data, application, technology layers, and then combine it with people, process, and technology, and figure out, okay, these are the gaps that needs to be addressed. So you don't have to go around the entire architecture figuring out stuff. You can just zero in on the key value streams and say these are the most important things that we need to do, and then you can actually tailor and work only on those aspects.
Right, sir. Yeah.
So
can we go to the next one?
Yeah.
So I would I had given these as 2 questions, but I think I could combine this. Like, what strategies do you recommend for balancing the need for flexibility and scalability with the need for cost effectiveness? What happens is, if we want to keep it scalable, then we want to keep the applications very, very open, okay, and loosely coupled kind of thing, and then it will. It is possible that we may need to expand to other geographies, etc. So, but then what happens is we lose out on the cost effectiveness. So, are there any specific guidelines or guidelines are there which are there in the general enterprise architecture or even TOGAF framework? Okay, and are there any cloud-based system specific or architecture specific guidelines there in TOGAF or any literature related to TOGAF? So I would combine question 3 and 4 basically.
Okay. I think the question 4, how do you use TOGAF for cloud transformation? I've answered that separately. I'll walk you.
Okay.
But coming to your question about flexibility, how to make your architecture flexible and scalable, obviously it is a lot of architecture principles are involved, and TOGAF does give you a placeholder on how to pin architecture, but it doesn't talk anything specific to the cloud. So there are some cloud white papers that I will share that you can actually go through them to figure out how it is being done in the cloud for the cloud migration stuff. But to make an application flexible and scalable, obviously you'll have to use architecture best practices, architecture principles to help you do that. And then making it cost effective, obviously you choose more of open source for that instance there. And then this is a very loaded kind of a thing that you have to make it flexible across multiple geographies. So you can use a lot of customization there and localization, as they would call it, using multilingual support and all of those architecture standard details that are there available. So that is, I would say, it falls in the purview of software architecture principles and guidelines. So if you architected your solution in such a way that it can be flexible and scalable and have an eye on the cost as well. So you can do it. But I'll just tell you what is the kind of thought process in making this kind of a decision using a common scenario. Typically you will decide the strength of your architecture based on, okay, how good is your architecture based on these parameters. These are some sample parameters that are there to decide how good is your architecture strength. Like, is your architecture multi-tiered? Are you able to have increased cohesion between the various components? So are you loosely coupled? Are you able to increase the level of abstraction in your architecture? Are you using O principles properly? Are you using reusability? Do you have reuse or modular architecture as one of the takeaways from what you've done? Is it flexible enough so that you can incorporate future changes with very little, changes to the base architecture, or will it be able to plug and play most of the parts that you keep on adding? And then if you are able to predict the obsolescence of various things, okay, this tier is going to go away after some time, it will be there in the short term for a week or two, after that it will be changed, and then a few months or a year, then what would be the portability considerations, what would be the testability scenarios, and how do you design it defensively so that if things go wrong, you still have a scenario wherein the architecture is self-healing in a way, and then it is able to throw exceptions and show that there are multiple of these issues that come across. So these are some of the architecture parameters that you would plan for. And so you could actually say that from whatever architecture, from what you're saying, your architecture could be a bit of multi-tiered architecture plus some bit of monolithic client services. So each has its own strength and weaknesses across these 10 or 11 parameters that are there. So typically this is illustrated by this particular diagram from Mark Richards and Neil Ford's book, which is the software architecture hard part. So you can pick and choose a particular architecture to say, okay, if you want more flexibility or cost-wise, what is the implication, or if it is interoperability or performance. So for instance, interoperability is not great in a layered architecture, for instance, but interoperability is very good in a service-oriented architecture. And for instance, if you see, microservices is quite good in terms of supporting agile practices. It is quite good at fault tolerance, and it's quite elastic. It auto scales itself quite quickly. So you can use a template like this to decide on parameters such as flexibility, scalability, and the cost, to see what kind of architecture parts would fit into each of these aspects, and how you will ensure that you are using that particular architecture to solve that specific need. And you can actually go from there. And typically the way they would do this is, let us say your architecture viability is like a triangle. On one side you have the tech stack and the environment, the other one is the organization structure and the business drivers. So typically this is all derived, this is taken from Mark Richards' book, the software architecture hard part. So which says that if you're actually trying to work around these aspects, so in practice you might change one of them or all of them or some of them. You might change the organization structure, the business drivers, the tech stack, and the environment. And typically you would look at what would be the details in terms of let us say that you're trying to change your tech stack. So you would go from, okay, what are the cloud tech stacks, and what would be the underlying container details, and then what would be the CI/CD supporting practices that would be there. So you could be moving to a fully matured DevOps stack, and you could be starting from just the cloud migration details to to a fully CI/CD based thing. So you could go from monolithic architectures to cloud-based architectures, and completely born in the cloud kind of architectures. You could be moving that way. And then obviously you will have to look at the architecture viability across the tech and business environment and the organization culture also. So for instance, if you are looking at the cultural aspect, you're trying to bring the cultural aspect which supports this transition. So you're looking at disintegrated siloed teams, which are moving to self-organized teams, and then finally moving to a microservices, a container-based development team with total DevOps in the picture. So that could be another change that could be happening in the architecture to do that. And then the other aspect is, what could be the business drivers that are driving the change. So, basically, you are going from, silo teams to technology changes, and then finally to a mature DevOps based practice. So what are the business drivers that are pushing forward to this? So initially it could be that you are working for a startup kind of a scenario with very little resources and money. That time silo teams are good. You have more coordination among teams. Then you come to an agile based practices, and now you are at the scale of, let us say, Netflix or Amazon, and you need to churn out multiple releases during one single day. Then you go to an advanced DevOps kind of a practice. So all this could be pushed based on your business driver decisions that are there. And then again, you come back to this mapping, which is going to tell you, how do you kind of use these decisions based on flexibility, cost effectiveness, and so on. So initially, if you say that in a startup, you want the cost is utmost important, it should be simple architecture and timely delivery. We want to deliver it quick and fast. We don't care about microservices. So it could be pretty much monolithic at this stage. And then, so if you say cost, the things, so monolithic architecture is what is the least cost. So it's got 5 stars on that. So if we can choose that monolithic architecture, no point going for microservices at this stage. But maybe in 6 months, 1 year down the line, or 2 years down the line, you've got more customers and details like that. Then you would go from a startup thinking to, I want a more scalable architecture. I want a more flexible architecture, more agile architecture. I'm ready to spend some money on it. So we've gone past the prototype stage. So let us now push forward to a microservices stack. So if you're trying to do that, then you could say that, okay, you want more agility, more scalability, then obviously it is the microservices stack that you can invest in. And so typically this is how you would play around the tech stack, organization culture, and the business drivers to figure out how you can change your architecture and derive the benefits of the architecture and make it more scalable, flexible, and then obviously have reduce the cost. So this is how you would do this decision across various tiers. So I just gave you an analogy on how you can actually use this kind of a mapping to actually do the use case for the cloud. So Prakash, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I'll focus on these. So this definitely especially the slide that you are showing now. Yeah. These aspects, yeah, I'll need to, and this diagram as well.
Correct.
So this I will look into the source and I'll talk to my technology architect also with respect to this, how we are proceeding on this aspect. Yeah, various parameters given here.
Correct. So this will help you create a good ready reckoner for you to take the decisions, so that you are not reinventing the wheel, and you say, okay, this is, and then as I told you, it may not be very simple as this, because your architecture in some parts could be monolithic, some parts could be microservices, some parts could be service-oriented architecture based scenarios. But you can use this template to decide what is the strength and weakness of each architecture and take decisions.
Definitely, sir. Yeah. So next one is in relation to TOGAF for EA. Okay, so are there any references to cloud?
Yeah. Correct. How do you use the framework? So here, so again, I'm just going to walk you through some slides of the thing. The rest of it is all there in the course, so which is there. So and also there are a couple of white papers and details that I will help you, get in hands on, so that you can actually refer to those details and then ensure that you're actually up to date on TOGAF. So typically you use a framework such as TOGAF to look at it as a placeholder to do various things in your architecture. So you can look at what would be in the preliminary stage for a cloud project. So basically, you're coming from the perspective of how to use a framework such as TOGAF for the cloud migration as an activity. And so it could be used for various kind of details, but our interest right now is to see how we can actually do it for the cloud. So we would actually say, okay, what are my drivers that are pushing me to do the cloud? What are my business principles, architecture principles? What is the vision that we want for our cloud project? So use this framework as a placeholder to do that. Look at the business parameters, look at the data application technology parameters, look at the implementation migration details, then migration details, governance, change management, and at the center of all of this is the architecture requirements management details that you would do. So you would use TOGAF like framework as a placeholder to figure out, okay, where in my architecture do I want to do all of these things, and how do I actually plan to migrate my solution. So this is a very good placeholder because it has several details on as to what you need to do in each aspect of your cloud journey, and at each step what you will have to do different. So all of that is actually quite detailed. It's there in the course as well, and then there are a lot of details on the white paper that you can take a look at. So just to show you an example of what can be done, let us figure out the fact that you're looking at only requirements management. So from a cloud service provider stack, you're looking at requirements management. So, okay, what is the kind of requirements that you need to do from a cloud service provider's point of view? What is the enterprise requirement that you need to be supporting? And then what is the user kind of requirements? So you kind of detail who are these details in terms of the requirements gathering template, which is there, and then say, okay, this is what I would explode as my base requirements, which will say that, okay, these are all my requirements that I would do from a CSV side, enterprise side, user side. And then we will actually go through each one of them in detail and figure out what we need to do this as a part of the several other details. And then you would come to the architecture vision phase. So let us say the architecture vision is the next phase that you come across here. So you would say that you have done the requirements to some extent. Now you come to the architecture vision phase. So in the architecture vision phase, you could say that, okay, how do I establish my architecture project? What are my business and stakeholder concerns? What are my business drivers, constraints? How do you do a architecture maturity assessment of the cloud maturity that we have today? How ready are we to transition ourselves into the cloud? What is our scope of the cloud activity? What are my architecture principles? What is my high-level vision? What is my target propositions and key indicators for that, key performance indicators? What are my risks and migration activities? And then you develop a business ask, or you create the statement of architecture work, which says that, okay, this is what we want out of this project. And then all of this is actually covered in detail in the course. You can actually take a look at that. And so typically the high level stakeholder concerns could be, okay, who are the different types of stakeholders? Like, what is a stakeholder, corporate stakeholders, what is their concern? The PMO, what is their concern? Cloud business, cloud operations guys. So what is the stakeholder mapping, like a RACI chart? You say who's responsible for this, who is informed, who is consulted, and who actually is accountable for all of these kind of details. And then you create a list of the catalogs, matrices, and diagrams that will correspond to them. And then you could say that, okay, my stakeholder, if they're corporate stakeholders, then they're looking at profit as one of the main drivers. If it's a cloud project management office, then functional prioritization, funding, business portfolio management. So these are what they look at. If it's operation guys, they're looking at compliance, service, SLAs. And if it's support guys, they're looking at assurance, capacity planning, and services, the service resource management. So these are the kind of stakeholders. These are the drivers that they're influenced with. And you would say that, okay, what are my typical goals, and what is my CFO's goal, CIO. So you can map your goals to various stakeholders like this and say what is their long-term, and how do you derive based on these requirements? How do you derive based on the goals? What are the requirements that you derive? And then you expand more on terms of the goals and the requirements, and say, okay, what is the stakeholder, what is his goal, what is his requirement? And then you say that, okay, what is my business capabilities across the stack? What is that we need to do in various business units that we are planning to do? So you can actually map your high-level capabilities to level 1, level 2, level 3 kind of capabilities, and map these to the value streams. So these could be the value streams based on which you would map the business capabilities. So there is quite an amount of detail in how you can actually do this exercise, and which I see is quite useful from the place that you're coming from. This is going to be a very useful tool for your exercise within the company. And you map your value stream with the capabilities, and you say, okay, what is the readiness in terms of each of these capabilities? Where are we today? Where do we want to go from here? And then we say that, okay, this is the readiness factor. What is the current state? What is our future state? How difficult or easy is it to transform this state? You can actually make those kind of decisions. And then you can do some assessment based templates to say what is your maturity in terms of the overall readiness in terms of going each of these routes. And you can develop a target architecture vision saying that, okay, we are currently some part of it's on-prem. We want to move something into the public cloud, something into the private, something in an outsourced scenario. So we want to do that. So you can actually use all these kind of templates to do that, and then define some target KPIs to do that. So this is just the first step of the architecture, one or two phases in the architecture that I just walked you through, when you can use a framework such as TOGAF to help you do a complete cloud migration project and then map it all to each of these requirements. So we just at a high level went through what is the requirements part of the architecture, how do you do the architecture visioning part. So the rest of it is there in the course. So you can go through that, and also share some relevant study material that you will be quite useful, and you can actually lay your hands on that.
Definitely, sir. So I would like to understand which module I should look for this. Especially this part was quite exciting. So yeah,
correct.
I'll definitely use that one. I see that, I mean, when it comes to artifacts, so we do not have any specific tool, modeling tool.
There is actually a modeling tool. I'll come to that. I think you
yeah.
question. So there's a modeling tool called Archimate. Archimate is a modeling standard. Archi is a tool. So there's a tool called Archi, which is an open source freeware tool. So you can use that tool as one of the details. So yeah, this is the tool. It's a freeware. So you can actually go to this link, and you can actually download it from this link. And you also have a very strong LinkedIn support for that. So there are around 14,000 members in LinkedIn who are working on various aspects of the tool. So any question that you have on that, they'll help you to do that. It's a freeware, actually. This is a completely open source free tool. So you can use for doing your architecture business modeling.
Wonderful. Okay, so maybe I'll request my boss for approval, and I'll get it installed on my office system.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
I think the other question you had was what metrics, right?
Yes, metrics. Yes, that was the next one. Yes.
Yeah. So what metrics would be typically? Yes. So when you're the start of your project itself, if it's very good to define with your stakeholders, like you sit with your bosses and your customers and say that, okay, what are kind of KPIs and matrices that you need to, that we need to measure at the end of this project, saying that, okay, we are successful, we have done this, and so on. So one could be time to complete the project, like how easy or difficult was it to achieve the timelines. Then what is the business ask? What are the drivers that are pushing for us to do this thing? Is it better customer engagement? Is it better customer experience, user experience? What would be the application performance in terms of before the activity, like in your case, it is you're already on the cloud, like AWS. Once it's on AWS and once it's on Google, what is that you're trying to measure, and what is the security parameters? How many, was security a driver for you to move to the cloud, or is the cost of the security solutions, was that a driver to help you move from AWS to Google GCP? So you can actually have these kind of parameters. What is the total cost of doing your exercise? What is the business continuity in terms of what you need to do? How much, if in case of service outage, what does it take for you to come up and down? Then what would be the infrastructure details that you would actually have in terms of the cloud detail? Okay, so typically what would be the user experience? What are the kind of governance criteria that you will actually need to have? So you can actually say that this is typically the kind of parameters that you would. So these are some the handful of parameters that I have given, but you can actually sit with your stakeholders, because finally your stakeholders are your ultimate decision-making members. So it could be your management, your customers, and your end users. So they are the guys who will decide what your parameters could be. But typically it would be along these lines. So you'll have to sit with them, figure them out, and find out what are the individual matrices and KPIs that against each of these parameters that you're really concerned about. And then once you sit with them, you can actually decide, what is that you would need to go. Prakash, does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So definitely, I need to sit with the stakeholders. I
Yeah.
think cost anyway is a factored item because they have already finalized it. But when it comes to migration before and after, what are the parameters I should look into? After, again, when we do migration, what are the parameters we should look into and tune if needed? So for that, I will sit with the stakeholders. I think that really helps. Yes.
Correct. So you will have to, because if at the start of the project, if you have this clarity, it becomes very easy for you to measure what is that you want to measure. And there's a lot of clarity from all the people involved also to tell you, okay, this is exactly the reason why we are moving, and these are the parameters that we need to measure. And that will give you a good grip on where you're going.
Yeah. I think regarding the tool, you
regarding
already.
the tool, I think I have just answered this one.
Yeah.
So is there a tool?
Apart from that, tool specific question, do you have any other suggestion or anything? Are these all the diagrams that you in the previous slide?
Yeah, I'll share you the reading material from where you can get all of these things.
Right.
I'll share separately. They are all available. So I'll share you the link to that. And I think, so as a business architect, you will have to, as an enterprise architect, this is what you feed into the system for your project. What are the strategic objectives, key value propositions, architecture principles, KPIs, and then what is that you promise as a part of this migration? What is the SLAs that you are actually looking at? That has to come out as a part of this. So you can use this kind of a template to feed all of this into the framework, and what is that you get out of the framework also becomes important. And once you've done that, it becomes easy for you to explain to your stakeholders, okay, this is what we use, this is what we intend to achieve, that sort of stuff. So this is the tool part of it that was there. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so again, with respect to the cloud migration, again, I mean, when it comes to the cloud migration part of it and enterprise architecture or business architecture part of it, are there any specific resources that you would suggest me to look into apart from your course material?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. So I'll actually share with you the list of all these things. So I've just compiled based on your unique place that you come from, because I don't want to suggest anything and everything because people have limited time. But these are some of the reading material that would make a lot of sense to know how you can position yourself as a strong member of your peer group, or being respected in front of your customers and your management. So the first book is Software Architecture Elevator. It is from Gregor Hope. So he is currently working with Google Cloud, if I'm not wrong. So he has got good experience in architecting in the cloud and the various parameters, the trade-offs that are there. So that's a very good one. Then Service Design is another good book by Mark Stickdon, and tells you how to look at your enterprise as a set of services that is going to promise anything. So all the cloud parameters. And so how do you look at the various service design parameters there? Then this is a very classic book, actually. This you don't have to read immediately, but you can. It's like a very good book on enterprise architecture written by Gene Ross. So it tells you how to use EA in your work across various tiers when you move up the ladder in your career. So it tells about all the decision-making tools and strategies and how to create innovation hubs. So it goes a little bit more at a director, VP level of seeing the architecture, and from that perspective. So it's I would say you keep that as one of your destination reading bucket list in the long term. Then the other one is Enterprise Solution Architecture Tools Strategy. So this will tell you about some ready-made templates and tools that you can use to, people, process, technology. How do you use some of the tools from here? This is about a classic book on how DevOps is going to help your business to win. Then it is definitely a good read. Then Software Architecture Metrics. What is that you need to measure to improve the quality of your software? That's again a good thing. Then Digital Practitioners Body of Knowledge. You can actually look at the open group links that I have shared across, and you'll find a lot of material on that. I will share you, which are there from the open group. The TOGAF links are there very much in the open group, which has got a lot of white papers on various industry scenarios. Then this is another very good book to read, which is about how do you mix agile with architecture. Like you said, you have to manage Scrum teams, right? And then you have to talk to architecture teams also. So how do you manage the engine room with the elevator kind of a detail, that kind of thing, by Daniel Lambert. It's another good book. Then Enterprise Architecture at Work. So this is about the modeling thing that you asked about, right? Is there any tool which will help me to zero cost licensing? So this tool tells you about how to model everything from an enterprise architecture perspective. And Mark Lancost, he's the author of that, and you can actually get a lot of good grip in terms of the modeling. He's taken a lot of examples and he's done it. So it's a very good, easy read with a lot of examples. So I think this, I would suggest you these details that are there. Then there's another thing that I wanted to share, which is about, cloud design. There's another book from Mike Kavis. So you ping me separately. I will actually, there's another book by Mike Kavis on cloud design best practices. So this is another good one because you are going to be using this. So yeah, this is, I would say, as your immediate list of things that you would need to do.
Definitely, sir. Yeah, thank you. And I think you have already covered a part of how do I grow from business analyst to business architect and then to enterprise architect. But apart from what you have covered, do you have any specific strategy that you would like to suggest?
Yeah, what I would probably ask you to do is, attend a lot of these talks from your thought leaders, follow them on LinkedIn, take part in these groups that are there, and then try to make some presentations yourself when you want to get the visibility, take part in user forums, take part in customer meetups, user meetups within the company, industry wise, and then you get to know what is the latest and the greatest that's happening across these details. And then So I think once you go through the course, it'll definitely has a focus on how to move to business architect and then eventually to an enterprise architect. But all said and done, you still, if you are following people on LinkedIn who are already doing that, and then you see, okay, what is that they are actually doing on a day-to-day basis, that will give you a very good perspective about how to do that. And then, that would, I would suggest that is definitely a way forward for you to, eventually grow as an enterprise architect. And so I think you are already on the right track with the right questions that you already have, except that you need to put yourself more in terms of getting exposed to various customer scenarios, various stakeholder decision making details, and then obviously follow your thought leaders wherever you find them, whether on YouTube or LinkedIn, and you just and then attend obviously the tech talks and the industry meetups. So I think that will be definitely a huge value add for you.
Great, sir. Yeah. And my last question would be on the certifications. So definitely this Agile Business Leader is one course that I am currently going to focus on. But apart from that, does it help to have certifications? Because I know TOGAF is one, but for business architecture, there is something called as BizBoc, and there is other than TOGAF, there is EABoc. These things are available. How much helpful they are, or should I look into them?
Yeah, since you are actually already by the end of this course, you would be kind of TOGAF friendly with in terms of knowing the methodology and the jargon. There is actually TOGAF business architecture credential is there now from TOGAF, which is actually a good package of everything that I know currently exists in the business architecture detail. And so BizBoc is another separate one you can do. But if you've done TOGAF, then I would suggest you do TOGAF business architecture credential, which is more in line with what is already there and we already know, and that is covering everything in BizBoc also to a very great extent. So there's nothing I would see BizBoc does separately that is not there in TOGAF business architecture course, and that's a separate course, TOGAF business architecture. So if you do that, I think that covers a lot of good details, and there are some good books on business architecture that I will share with you separately. One from Roger Burton, then Daniel Lambert, and all these kind of people. So I'll share you those details, and I think you can do that. And certifications wise, I would suggest you get some product owner certification also, apart from what you have currently as a part of business architecture, because that will also tell you how to look in terms of maybe a certification on some basic. I've covered aspects of design thinking in this course, but you can look at some things on innovation and design thinking also. I think as a long-term way forward. Once you've done all these things, you can do that also.
You mentioned about TOGAF business architecture thing. Is that a level 2 after TOGAF or something?
Yeah,
it's training and certification.
Yeah, it is. I've covered TOGAF business architecture as a part of the course, but there are two certifications. TOGAF enterprise architecture certification is a separate one. TOGAF business architecture is another certification. So yeah, both are different, but you don't. There's no dependency on you need to do this and then only you can do this.
Okay, that's quite
either of them
yeah
simultaneously or together.
Oh, okay. I'll look into the business architecture one because that is closer to me at this stage.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's part. So yeah. Okay. I was completely not knowing about that at all. So thanks for suggesting me that.
Sure, Prakash. I think we have reached the end of queries, looks like, for this session.
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
You can actually come with another set of queries at a later point of time, and then you can go over this like this. But otherwise, I hope all of this was useful.
Definitely, sir. So I'll look into these aspects, and definitely it will enrich me. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for taking this session. Thank you.
You do see a value add, right? That having a mentor or somebody who's going to
Definitely, yes. Because what happens, especially when we are not very comfortable to jump into an area which is little distant, and also if there is rigidity in, let's say for the specifically for the people who are having rigidity in moving internally, right? Even in the business departments, there could be, due to various reasons, organizations do not oppose growth and all, but due to various reasons, if there is not immediate opportunities available, having a mentor outside of organization definitely helps in identifying those, putting that extra effort, and then showing to the organization, saying that, okay, this is something that I have achieved and I have already contributed. And if that is done, then organization will definitely take note of that, and it will help us grow. Yes. So I do see a value, definitely. Yes.
Absolutely, because I could see that, very rare to get good mentors, because most of them are busy chasing deliveries and timelines, and unless you're very lucky,
time is a very challenging thing. Yes,
absolutely. Unless you're very lucky, you'll not
and at that level, because we are already like 15, 16 years of experience. When I am looking for a mentor, they will be at least this much, right? And they will have their own deliveries, and they have their own, unless they are super dedicated to the mentorship, it will not be possible for them to give time at all. And also, not everybody can be a mentor, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
need to have a passion for that.
Passion for that, yes.
Yeah, you need to have a passion for that, and you
Yeah.
have to kind of, really have an interest in
Correct.
people and that sort of stuff. So very rarely you get a boss who's interested in your career, and typically, you will have people who are looking at you in terms of deliveries and timelines and things like that. So it's very people who are there, but they don't have the time to do mentorship and
Correct. Yeah. Or even I mean, time is biggest thing. Okay. And boss may not be from the same line, so it's like matrix organizations these days, right? So they may be completely from reporting boss may be different, and actual boss will be different, like that, especially in service organizations it happens.
Correct.
So I will be having some boss in my service organization, but when it comes to the project, there will be a separate boss. So all these complexities add up.
Yeah, actually very true, because if you are not lucky, you will not find one. You'll have to this thing. So it's very rare that people get good bosses who are their mentors also. And I heard another friend of mine saying that he's actually been following his boss as a mentor. He quit 2 or 3 companies. He's joined 2 or 3 companies now, but he still has his ex-boss who's still mentoring him. And I see the value out of him, because he's progressing quite well in his career because of his ex-boss guidance. He says he's my day in and day out mentor. So I ask him for anything and everything, like the session we had today. So he says, and I can see him progressing quite well in his career. So he directly attributes it because of his ex-boss.
Wonderful.
So I think with that, Prakash, I think we'll have another session when you have the next set of queries.
Sure.
But I think it was good to have this call today. So I think we'll have to look forward for, I think I'm wishing you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.